She will call to New York for a very important meeting. And thanks to the wonders of Google Hangout, she'll be addressing us over video. Radha is an extremely accomplished woman with corporate, startup, and non-profit credentials. But her journey started well before that. And her journey is one of being a risk taker and not taking no for an answer. Just to give you a quick example of that, when she was, I'm told that when she was a teenager and her parents in Madras were looking for a suitable boy for her, she was applying for engineering college. So on to Guindy, from there to University of Southern California, Xerox, HP, 20+ year career in HP, ended up in running a 1.2 billion, that's billion with a B, division of HP, onward to a startup called, now called support.com, and then a complete 180, but not really, onward to the non-profit world. Started a non-profit with a husband called Anudeep, which has the mission of training disadvantaged youth and women in rural India on IT skills and micro-entrepreneurship. So, and I'm serious, rural India, they first started in 24 Burgas, around the Sundarbans. That's how rural. It's real rural. From that, they've started, and she's currently the CEO of a company called iMerit, which takes Anudeep graduates and employs them to solve problems, IT problems for multinational corporations and all other corporations. Google's a client, a customer. Today's talk, she really doesn't take no for an answer, as you can figure out. Today's talk, she is in New York. She had to be there for a grant. Many of you in this room understanding this business of financing, and that like kind of comes first. But Ashima and her worked out this business of Google Hangouts, but no was not an option. So, with further ado, and I've always wanted to say this, live from New York, it's Radha Basu.
Well, good afternoon and welcome back from lunch. I'm kind of hanging out with you guys in 2 or 3 different ways. I'm hanging out on the phone, I'm hanging out on video, I can see you, you can see me, but we couldn't bring all of this together, so you'll see bits and pieces of things. Thank you, CS, which is how I refer to him. And I wouldn't have you saying stories about me as a teenager, that's for sure. That's been a very long time. I am really sorry for not being there in person, but in a way I'm not sorry, because this is giving us an opportunity with a very large corporation, kind of like your size, maybe a tad bigger, and it's a meeting that I had to be at. So with hopefully good outcomes. So please bear with me as we try to make it through my presentation, and feel free to ask me questions. I know that is possible as well. So Ashima asked me to share with you a little bit about my journey, and I figured that sounds very, a little bit pompous for me to share my journey. So I thought that I would sort of share a few things I've done in life, but sort of related to how it reflects on leadership, particularly in this age of of transparency and resilience, and really being the age where the tough have to get going because the going is tough. So that's what I thought I'd do. Let me just do a sound check, just like CS did a live from New York. Hey guys, is the sound check good?
Yep.
Yes.
They can all hear you.
Good. Okay. All right. Great. So thank you, Chirayu, for helping me step through the slides since we're not doing a screen share. So I will start with finding a passion. So that's a picture of my old college, College of Engineering, Guindy. And it's actually taken at its 175th year when we were actually in college. So I'm one of those people standing in front of the college then. We did some crazy experiments in front of the college. We set off a satellite, a rocket, got into trouble. But anyway, this was a passion for me. And as CS said, I come from a very traditional Tamilian family, and it was a bit of an effort to get them to let me go to engineering college. Actually, my father found out that I had gotten admission because my darn name came out in the papers because I was the first woman to stand first in the admissions process. And I spent more time hiding the newspaper from him than letting him know that I'd actually gotten into engineering. So I went from just kind of stepping through the slide, I went from an all-girls convent school to an almost all-boys engineering college, 2,700 guys and 17 girls. You kind of have to be passionate about what you want to do in an atmosphere like that, to an all-American university. And I would say then worked my way through many different things to my passion, a career in technology for humanity, which is kind of the last part of this slide. And I'm hoping Chirayu, I'm helping you with the slides here. So that's kind of at a very high level the way I kind of found my passion. And it was actually now some of my best friends, in fact, once wondered why all my friends in college were boys, because there were very few girls. We were 17 girls, and there were 2,700 guys to choose from. So it was some of my best friends now are my college friends and their wives. And when we do things together, we just went for our 40th anniversary trip. And Deepak, my husband's kind of the spouse on the other side. But this journey really made me realize that no matter what, I wanted to be in engineering and really look at technology for humanity. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. Next slide. I'm kind of putting these messages on top because I just tried to be really authentic and sincere about what I learned through these experiences. So please don't take this as I'm telling you what is important. It is more my learning. So this building on the right is a very interesting building. It's not historic. It is just plain old run down. And if you look at the first, this was my welcome to America. So after I finished my engineering, I told my parents I wanted to go to the U.S. And again, very traditional Tamilian family. They were shocked. And finally, somehow maneuvered my way through. And then I end up in the U.S. with $8, which is all we could take out as foreign exchange at that time. And ended up staying at this Figueroa hotel. And I have to tell you, it was a very, very scary place to stay in downtown Los Angeles. And you really learn under fire. You innovate, you learn to innovate, and you become very resilient. And so it was kind of, for me, it started the journey for me to learn when you're down, that's the time to pick yourself up, dust off, and move on. And I say that in all sincerity. So what are some of the things we did? I did. I didn't have much money. I would do things like get off the bus. He would ask me, he would say a dime. I didn't know what a dime was. He would drop me off at the next stop, and then I would get back into the next bus. He would drop me off at the next stop. But I pretty much got to the university for free. And then I learned, oh, this is a good way to save money. It just took a little longer. The other thing I learned, and now international students at USC and UCLA do this, but in the initiation phase, in the first week, many departments have welcome to our department orientation, sort of orientation parties. So I got a list of all of those for the university for the first 30 days. And then so I had my whole schedule, like there was no Excel then, but it was like lunch here, dinner here, and they'd give me doggy bags, and I would pack them up, and I'd go home. And pretty much for a whole month, till I got my first paycheck, which was 6 weeks later, I pretty much lived off of $8. But what's interesting is the following year, when I became the president of the International Students Association, we made that part of the process at USC, that's how international students who came in got fed for the first month. So it just is that when you're really under fire, being resilient and being able to work my way through things was something I learned in this episode or in this journey. I want to just say one thing about this hotel, Figueroa Hotel. Many years later, it was a very poignant moment for me when we took our company public, and I was on the road show. This was 2001, and I was at one of the best known investors in the U.S. And I looked across. I was presenting with all these big windows and everything, and I looked across, and you would not believe it. I saw the sign of Hotel Figueroa. And it was it was really quite a moment for me, and I felt like, okay, this has taken a long journey, but what a way to look at the Figueroa Hotel. And then I move on to the next phase, and I call this frugal innovation to global leadership. So in 1985, I had the amazing opportunity, amazing one. I joined HP in 1978. And I worked in R&D, and then I ran the diagnostic medical group for Europe. So I was in Europe for 2 years. And then by pure chance, you call it carpe diem, you grab the opportunity. I was sitting on a plane coming back to the U.S. from Stuttgart with my executive VP, and we got into a big argument about why doesn't this country of yours, remember this 1986, nobody believed you could do any IT, any technology in India. He said, why doesn't this country of yours get into the electronics age? And I said, we are getting into it. I had known nothing about it. And he said, well, you're coming back from Europe to US. Why don't you go spend 3 months and find out what we can do in India? And we had a distributor then in India. And I had the great opportunity of setting up Hewlett-Packard India. And that is actually a sign of the first software operation of any multinational in Bangalore, with the first ever satellite data link, was Hewlett-Packard. There were two companies, Hewlett-Packard and Charlie Simons out of Texas Instruments. And there's a small room on Cunningham Road that's still called the satellite room, and apparently it is a little heritage site. It was the first satellite data link. I share this because sometimes very small things, and I'm not saying we did that. That was the time Infosys had started, TCS had started, but at that time no one believed that you could do IT in India. In fact, people would ask me, well, how do you get around? And I have a little Irish humor in me, and I said, oh, my father has a 3-elephant garage. And one very wise, very well-known R&D scientist at HP believed me until a month later I had to sheepishly tell him, no, we don't have those. We actually have vehicles and we get around. But that's what people never believed, you could do IT in India. And 1985 started HP India Software Operation as a 100% subsidiary, as well as HP India. And last year had the wonderful honor of at NASSCOM getting a 25-year award. It was actually 2012, called the NASSCOM Social Innovation Honors. and being taken to Infosys. The picture there is of Infosys Training Center in Mysore by Mr. Narayan Murthy, and showed around the place along with the Stanford Executive Program people that I was there with. And I just wanted to say that this is now, the industry is $100 billion industry in 30 years. And it just says that frugal innovators like Narayan Murthy, like F.C. Kohli, like Ramadure, many people like that started this industry in a very small way. I remember when we first did Unix work in India, we did multi-threaded Unix. I was so proud because we had the R&D for multi-threaded Unix out of India. And we started with 19 people. When I left in 1990, we had 1,200 people. And now it has, I think, HP with all the acquisitions and everything is something like 60 or 70,000 people in India. And so frugal innovation can lead to global leadership. And this is something I learned. It's something I really use today in my life, and that's why I wanted to put this. If you go to the next slide, this is actually a personal slide. When I moved from corporate HP in 1998, my husband and I had quite a, I would say, and for me, sort of a life-changing experience. We decided on pretty much a little bit of a whim. When he and I first met, he had told me all about this place Tiang Boche, etc. And I didn't believe him, and Namche Bazaar and things like that. So when he kept telling me, we're going to go there. So in 1998, I said to him, we have to go there. I don't believe you. So we did a trek, 23-day trek to Everest Base Camp. And this mountain here is not Everest. It's our very special mountain, which we love, called Pumori. We're standing at about 16,000 feet here. We went up to almost 18 and a half. It was a very hard experience, so don't let me fool you to say, oh, it was so wonderful. There were times when I thought, what in the world am I doing here? And that's true of many things in life, right, when you take risks. And that was the time I decided to move out of corporate HP. I had just become a vice president at HP. I was running, as CS said, a $1.2 billion business. I decided to come out of HP and with 3 other people to start a software company called SupportSoft. It was called Tioga Systems and then SupportSoft. And I have to tell you, the thing I learned there was change was my best friend. This change was amazing. I learned so many things. I knew very little about being a CEO. The only thing I knew is that I took a lot of risks. I was a good risk taker. And if I failed, I could get up and brush off and move on. But change was my best friend and learned a lot there. In fact, 3 of my co-founders at SupportSoft, we took the company public in 2001, and I was a public company CEO for 6-7 years. And then came the next part of my journey. So here was corporate, and then the startup, take it public. And if you know, in 2001, those of you who have been around long enough, that's when the dot-com bust happened. We were the second last company to go public. After that, I think for 2 years, nobody went public. And this was the change in this, and I learned an immense amount of how to use change to our advantage and to be able to really be able to learn how to be a CEO, a public company CEO, manage investors, a tremendous number of new things. So for me, change became a way to learn a lot of new things. And in the next slide, I just wanted to share this with you. I know this is sort of a kind of fun, but it's the joy of risk-taking. It's something I love to do, is to take risks, and not unnecessarily, but I love risk-taking. And we were in Antarctica in 2000, and we went on this journey. It was sort of a recreation of Ernest Shackleton's voyage. And when this picture was taken, this penguin was like a leader, came out of this. I mean, there were literally hundreds of thousands of penguins, and this is a king penguin, actually came up. There's a video that I can't show you. Came up to me. I took a risk. The penguin took a risk and came up right to me, and we walked for about 20 minutes. When I would walk, the penguin would walk. When I stopped, the penguin would stop. And without sounding trite or insincere, I have to say, I thought to myself, wow, that's quite a leader. Enjoys taking risks. He has no idea who I am. So I just wanted to share this with you, just to make the whole presentation a little bit more interesting. And the joy of risk-taking for me was one of the things I learned. Provided you're willing to fail, and I was totally willing to fail. I've failed many times in my life and learned from it. Sometimes you fail, you can't pick yourself up, you move on. Sometimes you fail, you pick yourself up, and you go, you learn from that and do much better and go to success. So, but without taking risk, I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, not stretching myself, or it's not boring. So that's what I feel about this penguin. So next slide. Now I'll get a little bit more serious. I'm sharing these pictures with you because I didn't want to put up a lot of slides with a lot of bullet points. But many years as SupportSoft CEO, then we sold to the enterprise side of SupportSoft, and then the .com side stayed, and it's still called Support.com, but it's much smaller. The SupportSoft enterprise side got sold to Citrix. And about that time, 2006, my husband was at Cisco, and he and I had been talking quite a bit about stepping out of the corporate world. And to be really honest, he had, at Cisco, they had given him the opportunity to do something called the Cisco Leadership. And he worked with Save the Children and then started a nonprofit called NetHope, which brought 40 large nonprofits together to share information, communications, and technology at the point of where the aid agencies deliver aid in the case of a large disaster, or to share applications. Anyway, NetHope has become very, very large. It's one of the largest NGOs now. But he had gotten into the nonprofit world and into the service world, and he kept telling me about the power of service. And at that time, I took a break, and I took a month off, and I went with him. And Chandra will recognize this. It's one of the islands. There are 104 islands in the Sundarbans, and a lot of brackish water because of rising sea levels. And a big cyclone, a super cyclone happened. And we are actually, this was taken as we're helping them, that as you can see, people are falling into the water, etc. But somewhere like the Everest trek, this particular time, the power of doing service became very, very obvious to us. And it was, again, a very much a transformative moment, not because we could serve people, of course we could, but because due to doing that service, people were empowered themselves. We learned so much about how people help each other, how service can make a difference, and the power of service, particularly with rural youth and young women. And out of this power of service, out of this experience, I have to say I was more touched than any other point in my life up till that point. Out of this came opportunities from adversity. I will talk a little bit more about these young ones. This is actually a picture from Outlook Business, where they did a cover story on us about how technology connects marginalized youth in Eastern India with IT projects across the globe, and that was iMerit. But this was really learning how to work with youth and rural youth, young women, marginalized, very, very poor people, and out of that adversity, how opportunity can develop. And I have to tell you that one of the young women in this picture is actually on her way as we speak to the United States, a young lady who has never ever traveled out of Kolkata. She's from a village about in the Sundarbans, 5 hours south. She's by herself on a plane because Microsoft has invited her to present at the Youth Spark Summit next Tuesday and Wednesday. One of the reasons we're here for the meeting is with Microsoft and at the Youth Spark Summit. And she will be presenting about her journey of how she has become a project lead from coming from a village. Their family earned literally 1,400 rupees a month when she came into our classes. And I'll now talk a little bit about, and this is not us, this is something I want to make clear. This opportunity is something these young women have developed themselves. We have provided, we're a catalyst, we provide the opportunity, but they are the ones implementing it and empowering themselves. And I will now share with you a few slides on that. So out of this came the idea of Anudeep. Anudeep is the foundation that Deepak and I started. He started it and I joined him. It's now a Harvard Business School case study. And the vision was to create, using technology, create enhanced livelihoods for marginalized communities, for underserved women, young women and youth, and to do it for 100,000 of them, and doing it through market-aligned skills training and IT project services. And I'll move to the next slide. Well, by the way, in this picture, we're taking literally across a rickety bridge in a very deep village. Atanu, the young gentleman on the right, is now one of our area managers in training. At that time, he was a young man. This is just 5 years ago. If you asked him what he was doing, he would say, I'm just sitting around. So they needed opportunities. So most of our students are high school, a little bit maybe first or second year, but all of them are 12th standard graduates. And what does Anudeep do? And I'll come to iMerit in a minute. It's an integrated business model. We train students in market-aligned skills training. Market-aligned means we work with employers, figure out their needs, and we provide them spoken English, workplace readiness, and basic IT skills. It's a 3-month training. At the end of that, we counsel them, find out what they want to do and what they are good at, whether they want to go into retail or call centers or Tech Mahindra or someplace like that. And then we give them the opportunity for 2 interviews. They can end up with jobs. 10% of them are very good and interested in micro businesses. So we do an entrepreneur development program for another month, help them incubate into a small micro business, and I'll show you a couple of slides on that. Or the last thing was, we started this thing called Merit Centers. Merit stands for, and please don't laugh, Mass Employment Through Rural IT. And so we found these students to be pretty good. I went to some of my contacts in the US, said, hey, you want us to do some projects for you? These are impoverished youth and young women. They said, okay, let's try it. It was insanely successful. It became a passion, and out of that was formed this company called iMerit. And iMerit is now 20% equity in iMerit is owned by Anudeep. It's a social enterprise, a for-profit social enterprise. With Omidyar Network, Pierre Omidyar is the founder of eBay. He has invested in it. They are the main investor. And 30% of the company is owned by our employees, below poverty level youth and young women. And that is the integrated business model of Anudeep and iMerit. Next slide. If you see this, so it has the market-aligned skills training. It's a build slide. Training centers, we have 160 training centers developing skilled IT professionals and IT-enabled services. They could go into jobs, and we test retention for 1 year at least. Tech Mahindra is a big employer of ours. It could be Spencer's, it could be construction companies, it could be call centers, variety of different things. Even TCS employs our people. They could go into businesses. Dream is developing rural entrepreneurs through adoption and mentoring. And we help them start micro and group enterprises. We're not a microfinance. We have something that is fund a dream person and dream entrepreneur for $1,000 or 50,000 rupees. Stanford Executive Program, for example, has funded more than 100 such enterprises, micro enterprises, and each one is $1,000. We give them equipment, and then they pay us back in 18 months to 2 years, and they get the title for the equipment. And the third piece, as I mentioned, is iMerit, district-level data centers that provide high-quality and low-cost IT outsourcing services that we call smart sourcing. A little bit about where we are. We have trained 23,000 marginalized youth and women, 80% placement, 200 employers, 200 of them entrepreneur units, 500 people in iMerit, and etc. And a lot of people who have been impacted. I won't go into all the details. The next couple slides are just pictures of our first meeting with villagers, our first group of desktop publishing graduates in 2007 who learned Corel, Photoshop, and PageMaker. And we have many, many skilled people in that doing design projects in digital publishing. And next few slides, we'll just step through them, and I'll put it on your website so you can see that. The jobs are in voice data, PPO, customer care, retail, back office, hospitality, etc. We do, and look at what one of our centers is like, and then they do practice. These are centers oftentimes without proper grid power. We have 3 centers with no grid power and solar that we work with. These are examples of one is an all-women, 20 women cooperative. One is graphic construction, digital graphics, etc. We have mentors who mentor entrepreneurs during the incubation and monitor them for a year. And then the last one is iMerit, which I run now. And I'll finish with this. We say that we are about digital jobs that transform lives. But first and foremost, it is about how we can help the businesses that we work with, our customers. Customers and customer focus is a core value of ours. Operational excellence is another one. Respect for people, and then being ethical. And you'll see this on the second last slide. But we basically work with businesses in the internet economy, and our projects are, if you go to the next slide, we both deliver results and empower communities. The slide you see here with the women is in Métier Bruce. It's all Muslim women. That's one of our centers, is all Muslim women. And we have 200 women working there. We've trained more than 300 or 400. These were people who could not leave their community and cross the main road and go to Calcutta, which was 1.5 hours away. And now, as I said, one of them is on her way here to go to Microsoft to present at the Youth Sparks Summit. None of them had spoken English, Urdu medium, and all I can tell you is, at some point, look at a YouTube video of one of them speaking at the American India Foundation Gala annual summit about a month ago. They were